Welcome to this Advanced Performance podcast, unlocking people's potential worldwide. I'm John Bullock, and joining me today is Richard Burkhardt.
So, John, you're going to be talking us through a subject very close to my heart. Tell us a bit more.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about motivation, or reason for doing something, or how bothered am I, whatever you want to call it really. It's a massive part, obviously, not just in personal life, but also in your work life as well. You need a reason for wanting to do something, if that makes sense. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about two types of motivation today. So we get straight on to the first type of motivation. The first type of motivation is something that I call towards motivation. What that means is that it's quite simple actually. You want to do it because you want to do it. Okay? There is normally some kind of benefit at the end of it for you. So if you move towards that thing, you'll either feel better, get more money, whatever it is that wants to motivate you, if that makes sense. So for instance, I am towards motivated to run a marathon because at the end of the marathon I feel great. I may have raised some money for charity, and it's a great, I get the medal, I get the reward, if that makes sense. Okay, I am towards motivated to go home and see my children at the end of the day. Yeah. So that's towards motivation.
Okay, John, that's fantastic. So I fully understand towards motivation, that there's a benefit at the end of it, there's a reason for doing it. What's the other way of motivating someone?
Now, I find this one most interesting because the other form of motivation is what I call away from motivation. So instead of this time moving towards something for the benefit, you're actually moving away from pain. And what I mean by that is I want to do this thing still, but I want to do it because the pain is too great if I don't do it. So let me give you a little example, Richard. I would suggest, if you think about your house, that there are a number of things that you've been meaning to do in your house for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
And
you've been to my house, John?
The reason you haven't done that yet is because those things, let's for example say the picture frame that isn't hanging straight, you haven't fixed that yet because it's not causing you enough pain to do that. You don't really wake up in the morning and go, I can't wait to fix the picture frame. That's a towards motivation. But what will happen is it will niggle at you and niggle at you and niggle at you until maybe the picture frame falls off the wall. Now the pain is increased. You then will go and do it. But you're doing it because the pain is greater, not because you really want to do it. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. It's the niggling bit. I'm not sure the niggling comes from me. But I'm pretty sure that the niggling comes from, let's just call her a third party.
So those are the two types of motivation, really. Towards motivation, I really want to do it, or away from motivation because the pain of not doing it is too great. Now, that can do a number of things now. It can actually really empower somebody to go away and achieve what they want to achieve in life, or it can actually make people quite scared. And what I mean by that is what I've just done is, if you believe in these two forms of motivation, I've taken the blame blanket away. What I mean by that is, let me give you an example, Rich. Let's say that somebody has a gun to your head. I'm sure it will never happen, but let's say somebody has a gun to your head and they're asking you to do something you don't really want to do. You have a choice at that point to say yes or no. If you say no, the pain is likely to be very, very great, obviously, but it's still a choice. Does that make sense? So what this means now is that we have choices about everything that we do in life. The next time you find yourself saying, I've just got to do this, that's not correct. What you're saying probably is, I want to do this, but the motivation is just away from motivated rather than towards motivated.
I understand.
And what that does is it massively empowers you to go, actually, we've got a choice now of what we do, so we can prioritise our tasks, whether that's towards or away from motivated. But it also takes the excuse away as well that you have to do things. So that's what I mean by this can either scare a little bit or empower you. I like to think of it that it can empower you to make the choices that you want in your life, if that makes sense. So for me, work out what your motivation is.
That's great, John. I mean, as always with our podcast, what are the three learning points that we can take away from this?
Okay, so the three learning points for me around motivation are, first, for point number one, understand what your motivation is. Okay, so what's the reason? Why do you want to do it? Number two, understand which type of motivation it is. Is it towards motivated? Is there a benefit? Or is it away from motivated because you want to get away from some pain? And then point number three, take personal responsibility to decide whether you're going to go and do that thing or you're not going to do that thing, but at least you have the choice.
John, thank you very much.
So thank you to my guest, Richard Burkhardt.
It's been a pleasure, John. Thank you.
I've been John Bullock, and thank you for listening to Advanced Performance, and please listen out for the next podcast in the series.